did not think I was going to rewatch this episode, and yet I still ended up
rewatching the episode. Well, that's good, because it's the long episode, and I am very confused at the order of things and the memory of things. Also, I'm impressed. If you just start talking early, I don't get to do my video intros. Well done. Well played, Kelsey.
Jump right into it.
Jump right into it.
So something outside the episode that someone had pointed out on one of the Facebook groups is that Gladiator is mentioned in Tiny Heist. So I think it's very cute. I haven't seen it officially said anywhere that they're set in the same world, but I think that's a cute little link in two worlds that could very well be the same world.
Yeah,
magic and stuff.
There's literally nothing preventing Tiny Heist from being in the Unsleeping City. Being in the Unsleeping City universe in a different suburban town. So
they finish their battle. They pretty much cut to the hospital in Kingston's secret room quickly. Cody all set up as they try to get his aging reversed before it's permanent. What they were looking at is that, of course, Kingston has greater restoration. He just didn't have it prepared. Yeah. So by straight mechanics, he basically needed 8 hours to prepare it and then could do it. But they brought up something interesting. The Holy Grail detergent that I hadn't really thought about. I had thought that it was all used up. I forgot that it had multiple charges. Yeah. So that was very cool.
That was a deep grab from Kingston. Yeah. Or from Lou of being like, don't I have that detergent?
I'm like, it's not on my character sheet, but
I know we had it and everything. Great grab.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so at least using that to just let them hand wave cutting down the time. This will kind of jump a little bit. There's lots of things that happen over this time, but it's definitely a little bit slower pacing, a little bit stretched out pacing. Mm-hmm. Cody constantly trying to punctuate cool things with smoking, just this throughout the entire episode, and being told, stop, you can't smoke in here, man. Just
I know,
repeatedly.
Right? So many times. Fuck. So many times. It's such a great running gag with Cody now.
Mm-hmm. And so Kingston did some reaching out to old timers, people like Willie and Em, looking for information. All these memories disappearing, because in this, Pete's going through the memories. He can tell that there's memories of the Voxes disappearing right out from under him as he's flipping through them in this case.
Yeah, right.
So basically, they find out that there's 2 Voxes who he cannot see the end of their lives. Pete can basically see all the memories of Voxes, except for the ends of the lives of these 2. So Gatsby we'd heard about before, the Vox from 1920, 1929. The other one, Hans Fischer, we really haven't heard about before, and we still didn't really hear much about here either. I was really interested in that. Instead, they focused on Gatsby, who we'd heard of before, and who kind of had some struggles that mirrored Pete's, Pete seeing them struggling with addiction at the end of their life and losing their connections to people.
No, I like their acknowledgement of the differences is that Pete had Kingston. Gatsby didn't have a Vox
on that. There's never been a Vox Populi and Vox Phantasma at the same time. So these people never had someone to lean on who had anything close to what they were going through.
I know this is way late for this, and I should have brought it up early, but that reminds me of We Need to Talk About Pete, which reminds me that they nicely titled this episode, We Need to Talk About Cody, which tonally is so hilarious because it's just fucking Cody.
I know, 2 very different tones, but it was, that was a very fun, nice callback in the episode title.
What I wanted to bring up, though, was I just like it because of We Need to Talk About Pete, because of the journey that Pete and Kingston's friendship has gone. They started this season with them reconnecting in a real significant way. Not reconnecting, but just meeting up after a while, kind of a way, and that friendship being really strong. And it makes me happy because it really reinforces there's a big reason why Pete isn't just like a wild mess, and it's because of Kingston's
having
influence.
Kingston and Ricky and people who genuinely care about him and care about people in a greater sense.
It grounds the Vox Phantasma to the reality of New York.
In there, Esther and Alejandro's granddaughters come to visit, and so it was very nice and cute to see them. That like, okay, no, they never did get the vampirism dealt with, but they're still part of the the Gramercy Occult Society.
They're fine. They're just vampires.
Everyone trying not to just be immature constantly with the I need to get this box checked out discussion. And finally just like basically just being like, okay, we're gonna address this head on immediately and then try to keep our shit together the rest of the episode.
It's an adorable phrase for Egan to say.
Part of that though was talking about getting it checked out was Emily immediately remembering Lowell, the guy who identifies things with his ass, but immediately getting shot down by everyone in that instant.
Like you brought up the vampire twins. I love it because Cody's just like, oh, cool vampire girls, and just again watching the cast just brace themselves for Cody to just be.
Well, it was a fun moment because of course, like, he's immediately like, are these vampires? Are these? We were fighting werewolves, so it makes sense. They're the natural enemy. Well, you're like 400, right? We'd be younger than you if we weren't turned still. Like, it's like, yeah, I'm 27. Like, and again, this coming from a 47-year-old who's insisting he's 27.
I'm actually 27. If you met some dude at a bar who looked 47 and was dressed like Cody, demanding that they're 27, you would tell all of your friends about that the moment you had a chance.
Yeah, most likely. So what we immediately found out is that the box was really too warded for Esther to get information
to
from
identify it.
Yeah, and Iga didn't have like really helpful things up front. So yeah, they know that about the box. It's super warded to prevent people like wizards finding out about it potentially. Murph forgetting that he has to talk out loud to Bazthrax. I love the like little conversation he has. Like, you're fucking hooking me up. I'm going to pretend we're not friends. And like, it's a minute or two of that before Emily finally pipes up and like the rest of the group starts being like, wait, what is that you're talking about? Right around the time that Bazthrax started talking about devils being invited. Just like reminding Murph that like all of your side of it is out loud.
Fuck.
And at no point have you tried to learn to not do it out loud.
No, he hasn't really had a lot. Like, he's had the time.
I know, they've had like no time. But again, it's never, he at no point as a player has expressed
he doesn't metagame
any
to
kind of like,
well, I personally think that there's no way Murph puts down the opportunity that his character can't telepathically communicate, so has to talk out loud because he understands the comedy gold.
Yeah. We very offhandedly, Iga says that, it's the box, the source of our power. Which again, it's like, everyone's like, what does that mean? And get no more information really. So they hear back from Lowell and find out that at best case scenario, it's still a few days before he can
he's got a pretty serious schedule of magic item identifications. Plus, we put so many things in your butt on a given day.
Exactly.
It's just safer that way. I love that a joke from season 1 or an apparent like very simple, like common hospital anecdote from season 1 is like a key to unlocking a mystery in season 2. Again.
I mean, it was in the first season.
Again, the butt returns. Just so satisfying.
this area is where there's some definite kind of slowdown while they figure out what they're doing. They have to kind of convince Iga to work with them. This is something we talked about a little bit, where it's hard having a character whose premise is that they're not interested in being a part of the thing. So that means that you have to spend time getting them on board with the thing instead of being able to just go do the thing.
Yeah, this is something where I'm confident.
It's not, like, I don't dislike it. It's like, I really like Iga as a character, and I'm good with those choices on the overall. It just means that you have to take time to do that, and that may or may not be the most compelling parts of the story. Yeah.
I'm confident that we will get there.
Yeah, so we kind of take a while talking around going inside of the box, and that's different than opening the box. You never open the box, but you can go inside of it. And again, still, like, Iga not knowing or being coy about it being a pocket dimension.
This is where Esther goes in this area.
This is where Esther starts just to be,
like, you know what the problem with warlocks? No
You're
offense,
not interested.
Sophie. They don't want to understand. How do you not want to understand how you get your powers? Oh, I just found this magical object and I have powers now.
There's the very real comment about it being a very nice escape as a mother of two. Just go in the box for 10 minutes. It's real quiet, calm. Yeah, and then there's when they're expressing their concerns around the changing in the city and working and getting her on board. Iga talks kind of flippantly about, like, the city's constantly changing. That's the nature of New York. It isn't something to be worried about. And so I think it was nice that they immediately kind of brought into it. But, like, there's a difference between it changing, changing over time constantly through the people that make it up versus being large corporations forcing change through artificial, like, buying up of real estate.
Quick. There's a difference between changing and erasure. And what's happening in parts of New York is an erasure, not a change. It's not different bodega going in where other bodega was, or a barber shop instead of a bodega or something. The makeup of New York. It's sort of like when people talk about, I would imagine, it feels a lot like people talking about the 1990s and early 2000s change of Times Square and sort of like the identity of what that was versus what it is now as a giant commercial tourist trap.
So we again have a little Cody levity. They're basically just finding Ziploc bags of cigarette butts in Cody's jacket.
Gross.
They had a couple times where, like, all the team except for Cody, come here and talk for a moment. But Zach, I think, is the one that there was this moment where it was so cute to see Murph just giggling insanely while Zach called a team sidebar without Cody, like a la Hot Boy Summer on NADPOD.
Yep, that was
who watches it.
Big NADPOD energy. Can I get a sidebar with everyone but Cody? Big NADPOD energy. I'm very happy about it.
But this kind of encapsulates that, like, when you talk about Cody, title and moment, that they did more cleanly here, I think, because of what they went through with Pete, where they very, very clearly understood, and everyone understood that if they abandoned Cody, he only had devils to guide him.
Yeah.
So after that, we finally, everyone except for Pete and Kingston go into the pocket dimension.
Yeah. The Voxes stay out.
Yeah, the Voxes stay out. Everybody else goes in, along with Alejandro's granddaughters, and Esther stays and talks to the Voxes. So we knew that Antipopuli had gotten into the box, and so Brennan did a nice job of first narrating what everyone sees, which is this pretty gorgeous, interesting thing of this castle with, like, a half-mile of forest around it, and then mist around that. This beautiful kind of European castle, full-on castle. And then, like, it's like, okay, Iga, this is bullshit compared to what it usually is. Something it's like its splendor is missing. You used to be able to see forest to the horizon in all directions. Everything is faded, and as they kind of go through it, they see that, you know, things are missing. There's a pantry that's supposed to always be restocked that specifically, like, borscht bites and some cheese are missing.
Paintings
it's part
are
of
showing time.
Yeah, paintings are aging and showing time. And this jumps a little bit into her downtime, but like there's a story that her daughter forgets, and so when she's looking at the library there, the book is gone. Like,
yeah.
So things are disappearing, not just from like Vox's memories, but from things like this as well, touched by the anti-populi. So while other people are properly exploring, Cody wants to go see that rad haunted forest. So Ricky escorts him. Immediately starts looking for swords in Iga's things. There's always that, like, you know, the dice help tell the story, and just the karma that just it's so universally right that Cody rolled a nat 1 on that search for swords. Like, that's what you fucking deserve.
It's what you deserve. You could have just asked Iga if there's any cool swords in there and if you could have one.
I mean, like, he does ask to keep it later.
Yeah.
He does ask Iga about it, the one that Ricky finds, because Ricky finds a sword that they eventually roll to learn more about, and are like, yeah, it's more powerful in modest hands. It definitely would be more useful for Ricky than Cody, but Ricky's not looking for that weapon life right now.
No.
Let's see. Next note I have Kingston remembering to check in about that. Oh yeah, I was so happy that they actually had Kingston stop and like do some investigation on that chest pain that he had before, and realizing that, okay, this definitely is not old age. And because Peter's like, oh yeah, I intended to check in about this, let's swap some info real quick. A little bit of lore, learning about the Umbral Engine, and I can't remember if this had been brought up last season, but just that the Umbral Engine doesn't create the Umbral Arcana, it just harnesses Umbral energy. Do you remember more about the Divine Senses?
I know that one of them, and I can't remember whether it was Ricky or Cody's, probably Ricky's. Normally, in a divine sense, you would sense celestial or fiendish, or you would sense nothing.
Oh yeah, and they got the like basically the not a number response. Yeah, so like this is an absence of a response.
Yeah, this is neither there's nothing here or there's something here. This is I don't understand. You can't understand like what you're trying to do. Basically, whatever this is, it is neither real nor magical, kind of thing. It gave me big Never-Ending Story vibes, right? Like, it's not as violent as the Nothing.
Like, after a part of the Divine Senses, Cody finds out that Basilthrax already sent out invites to devils in New York. In talking with Iga some more, she says, you know, the spirits of the castle give us our power, but still real, like, unclear on what the spirits are.
Do you not know what they are? No.
Yeah. Cody asks to keep the sword Ricky found. There's some Super Diablo-y Tristram music on the score, like, for this scene.
Yeah, right? Jesus.
Like, and then my notes just cut to Sophia and Dale saying goodbye. AKA just like a scene of me crying, like, from... So you were asleep for part of this.
I rewatched
because you woke. Okay, good.
Yeah.
The first time when we were watching this together, the day it came out, he wakes up from like dozing for a moment to me just sobbing because Brendan had just narrated the nunchuck, like Sophia coming in and finding the nunchucks on the bed. And so like that, like the moment he described that, I just started crying.
Yeah.
It's like, we know what's coming.
I fully agree with, and I can't remember which Facebook group or person posted it, but whoever posted one of the Dimension 20 Facebook groups, is Emily crying? Then I'm crying.
Yeah.
Because of course Emily's crying, because that's the emotional moment. It was nice that they got to that moment, the subsequent episode, and resolved that very difficult and sweet conversation.
I really like the forward thinkingness of Sophia in this moment to get prior consent from Dale to revive him if the chance ever came up, because that never happened. No one ever gets people's consent. And then you have like the Buffy scenario where it's like, well, you ripped me out of heaven and I didn't want to be. It's like, no, I already got permission. Then if I can revive you. You're down with that.
And he's like, I guess. Yeah, that is neat.
And yes, it was just nice to see for after the previous scene they had for Sophia to get the real closure about that, and Dale being gone from her life. And then we move to her at the monastery, the Concrete Fist. We get to see some new recruits being trained. Clarify that, yes, Sophia is the highest ranking member of the monastery. And then we meet Tony Simos, and I super don't trust him.
Yeah, zero trust.
Yeah, former Fist before the dude before Sophia. But yeah, like at first you kind of like hear the story and it's sad, but like directly after that, I just get untrustworthy vibes from him, and I'm curious if he actually did survive the fall of the San Francisco chapter, or if he's like at least possessed, if not just like actually dead, and this isn't him.
Yeah.
So like we know that there's issues between the Order of the Concrete Fist and the Vox Phantasma because of like the way that they kind of stand for what is real, what is there, what is, whereas the dreaming is everything that can be.
Yeah. Well, also
but Tony gets super weird about it.
Yeah, he does.
And they're having any kind of relationship.
Yeah, I based off previous Vox Phantasma's descriptions and everything like that, and kind of almost probably informed by how Allie played Pete in the first season. The like implication of it's like, yeah, like Vox Phantasmas do protect the city, but they don't do it with any sort of consultation or agreement. And they sort of just go off whoever they are. And they're not trained to be Vox Phantasmas. They just are. So it's sort of a mixed chaos bag.
Yeah.
It's like someone could be very much like, you know, like a Ricky or a Kingston, where they have a very strong kind of moral center and predictable thing, or they could be like Gatsby, or they could be like Gatsby, or they could be like Pete, or they could be like fucking Cody, right? And so I like the idea that that's a big reason.
I am really curious, after hearing about how short the 10 years were for these two who ended their lives somewhere deep in the dreaming, and thus Pete doesn't have memories of it. Are all Vox's 10 years so short as their twos were?
I bet you they are, because they don't have a lot of allies. And they get in their head.
And that's something, that I'm like, that is wholly reasonable and would be very sad. And so then we jump into everybody's downtime activities.
Yeah.
Iga inventories the pocket dimension. There's a offhanded thing that she and Brennan just like agree on, and no one else says anything because of course no one else is there. It's Iga's downtime. But like, I'm really curious about when they just say offhand, avoid the darkness in the castle, just to stay in areas where light can come through the windows.
Yeah.
And it's real quick. And like Brennan says something and just Siobhan says something back to that effect and agrees, and they just move right on, and I'm like, wait, what? No, why?
What is this danger? What is this plane?
So they did mention the Alejandro's granddaughters did mention that there is something deep in the castle.
Yeah.
But that's most of what we got. So yeah, inventories the castle, finds the book is missing after having disagreement with her because her daughter isn't very interested in the box, in their legacy, in their culture. And that's what kind of leads to finding out that, okay, she forgot about the story, and then that book realizes that book is gone. So just finding things that are missing, continuing to age, that stuff is still affecting the box as time goes on. Ricky just declares that he's spending his downtime with Cody to help in this, so Brennan just rules that gives Cody advantage for his downtime. Cody tries to find out the nature of the Devil Book and who Bazithrax was summoning, basically asking how bad did he fuck up. Bazithrax line I just can't forget, we're gonna get wet. And then actually has to jump cut from that point to not spoil the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Kingston bakes cookies and goes around the neighborhood delivering those and looking for a pattern in real estate purchases. He got a 29 on his roll.
Yeah, exactly.
So that had him just showed a scene of him, touring that condo and learning about units being bought up and left empty to gain value.
Yeah, to hold as investments as increasing accruing value properties rather than a place where anyone would live. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love Lou's play on that as Kingston's reaction to that, where he's just I'm trying to be polite. Oh my Jesus, I want to break this building down right now.
Mm-mm. Yeah, this we talked about a little bit. It killed me that Kingston didn't dig into who owned Excelsior Homes, who was buying those up. Because I wonder if it ties back to Gladiator.
I think it ties back to Gladiator. Now, I'm really curious if I wouldn't consider it a bad idea that they would rehash the idea of the CEO powerful villain, but play it as we gave you the last guy that wanted to be the identity of New York and control what New York was based off of his
own realm.
His own realm.
He led.
Now we're going to give you the callous modern CEO. I love the whole scene. I loved Kingston freaking out about it. I loved the idea. Because I was thinking that they're oh yeah, they're overpriced condos and everything. And I'm well, maybe they're going to introduce this as people from Gladiator live here and stuff like that. And they're spiking, oh, nobody lives here. Oh, that's so much worse. That is so worse.
So much worse.
And then he gets
and then just him running out of there. And that sadness of the bodega scene of realizing that not only do they buy this place up, remove all of the occupants and just keep it empty, that's then crushing out the businesses around it who now no longer have people going to them.
Yeah, that
which means that bodega, those things around it are going to close, which they will then buy up. It's this self-perpetuating awful thing.
Mm-hmm. It mirrors the what's happening to Eagle's Realm. It's taking something that had a vibrance, whether bad or good, whether rundown or exciting, whether a romantic moment or something like that, and replacing it with emptiness.
And then we have Pete's downtime, where he fully moves into his new place. Talks to Lugosh, his sponsor, goes to NA, and just focuses on taking care of himself, and goes up in his sobriety die.
Yeah, I didn't realize, I guess I didn't put it together, or it didn't impact me so much, since Pete goes up to a D6, correct?
Pete was at a D4.
Pete was...
Because that's what they had been talking about. I thought that it was 6 months. He was only
60 days. Yeah, 60 days sober. And so that was my thing, is that I knew that they were playing it that Sophie had been sober longer and had a higher die and everything, but I love that Pete, that we got to see it in action. We got to see this thing in action where Allie's and then, there's some other things you could do, but I think Pete goes to an NA meeting. And I was it's the choices you got to make.
Seeing that, going through all of the memories, past boxes and all that. No, Because, we have to see it in action in both directions. Because Sophie instead dives into work, just sharing research with the Gramercy Occult Society, and just, like, she even describes, like, I am just living, breathing this research right now, not taking care of herself.
Yep.
Which means that she goes back into sobriety dies. Yeah, so she only got an 8 for her downtime activities, so she basically just gave Esther the help action on research. We got introduced to the latest inductee for the Occult Society. And since he was neat, he's doing research at MIT on time and time particles.
Yeah. Chronomancy.
The most powerful magic.
It's the most powerful magic.
So then we then quickly cut back to Cody and find out that it is the Jersey Devil heading towards them at this moment. And that's the end of the episode.
I want to comment on, other than that being fantastic. It's like, is it Jersey? Are they coming from Jersey? It's the Jersey Devil. I want to comment on that though. That is really the first time, I think, this episode is really the first time we see Cody sort of struggle to try and... Cody's never been outwardly villainous or evil.
And Murph has even been explicit about that. Yeah. It's like, he's not evil. He just wants to harness the darkness.
Yeah, harness the darkness. And so, this episode really sets that in tone for people that are like, is Cody gonna, like, be... No, Cody has no interest in being a villainous monster. What he has... Especially
with all these cool magic users around him that he wants to impress.
What he wants to do is, if he has control of the darkness, he can use the darkness against other darkness. And that's his whole intent, is get devils together, and then he can control them, and then he gets...
There's one time, like, when they're in the castle, he's like, sometimes you gotta become a devil to save an angel. Oh. Does that feel like, what? What's the angel in this? The mall? Just...
But yeah, I think he just genuinely believes that he can, be Jack Black from Brutal Legend, and and save it through awesome things. And it's nice to see that very deliberately affirmed in the episode, so that potentiality of plot thread, like, he might still be tricked into or warped, but the character isn't by nature a villainous character. Pete is right. Kingston is right. And then they gotta go fight the Jersey Devil and other devils, and that's cool. We didn't get to see a straight up devil battle last season.
Especially because all we got was Isabella and some minor.
Yeah, but other than that, is there anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay, well then, as always, thank you to the fan artist whose art is featured in this video. You can find descriptions and links to all their wonderful work in the description below. And I guess we'll watch next week and see what the next Roll20 battle is and what it looks like.
I cannot wait to see the art for these enemies.
They're gonna be so douchey. So douchey.
Thanks, everyone.